Hello and welcome back to Green Gaming Fest, where Quack is going to be playing Haiku the Robot with the category All Bosses and Skills.
Alright. Hi everyone. It's still me. It's still Quack. This is my last hurrah. And it's Haiku the Robot, which is a game I am a huge fan of. Haiku the Robot is another indie solo dev Metroidvania. The devs of this and Lone Fungus are friends. And this category is all bosses and skills, in which we're going to do exactly what it says on the tin, fighting all of the bosses, collecting all of the major movement abilities, and incidentally getting the true ending to the game while we do it. So I think for this one we can get right into it. I'm gonna start in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so all bosses and skills. Is a very interesting speedrun category. Right away, we're going to see this fun little wake-up cutscene where Haiku is reanimated, called forth. Who's to say? I continue to not know the lore of video games. But as soon as Haiku wakes up, I am going to attempt a trick, the outcome of which will fundamentally change the route I am using for this run. Because the trick I get exactly one shot at. The two routes aren't very different. There's only a gap of like 5 or 10 seconds between the faster and the slower. I just think it's an incredibly comedic way to start out a run. And we did get it. Let's go. Good omen for the run. So that was a coyote jump. Taking advantage of the fact that if you're familiar with many platformers, coyote frames are a thing where you get a little bit of extra time after you walk off a ledge to jump where the game treats you as grounded still. It's like a game feel thing that many platformers enjoy. In Haiku in particular, the coyote frames are very generous, and you notice I was able to coyote jump out of a slide for both that and to pick up that rusty key there. That's not the only way in which coyote frames are ridiculously generous in this game. We'll get to some other ones in a little bit. But the reason I did that trick was to pick up a chip, which is this game's equipable, called Infinity Edge, which gives all of my attacks a 1 in 8 chance, also known as a 10% chance based on the tooltip, but actually a 1 in 8 chance to critical strike, dealing double damage. Then I'm going to pogo up this enemy to access actually the first boss of the game. This is the Tired Mother. That's actually her canonical name. This is a classic. The boss sits still and spits things at you. Combat in Haiku is very simple generally, especially coming from Lone Fungus, where you have about 8 billion buttons all the time. And generally the only thing to worry about here is two things. One, the animation for Haiku's up and down slash is slightly faster than the animation for their side slash. So generally you're going to see me up slashing or pogoing as often as possible. And the second thing is, a boss can only be killed when it's not attacking, so the boss will always finish its current attack before properly dying, even if you set its HP to 0 during that attack. Which is hugely relevant for a couple of bosses in some rather funny ways in this run. Something else I will say is that certain rooms, including any room that is adjacent to a hot room, as well as any room with a save station in it, automatically refreshes Haiku's heat, which is that gauge in the top left corner that controls how often I can dash and use other abilities. So if you ever see me tag back and forth into a room like I just did there, it is probably to get a heat refresh. Nice crits. So this is the first boss that any percent fights, Trash Compactor. It's the first one guarding a major movement ability. I'm gonna play it a little bit safe since we got a number of crits. Yeah, there we go. The thing about that boss is he's got a hitbox right in the moment you kill him. A total opposite of Lone Fungus, which can be a little bit unfortunate there. So I just want to play safe at the end of that fight. But this is Magnet. This is our wall jump ability. So great to get the wall jump right away. And now, much like how in Lone Fungus, I didn't actually want to play the video game, so I quit out. Now I don't want to play the video game, so I'm going to die a whole bunch. I'm going to take 4 intentional deaths here. And that's because we must be mean to the machines in the environment speedrunning marathon, I guess? No, it's actually for a very specific purpose, which is that whenever Haiku dunks into hazards like these saw blades over here, they gain 4 seconds of invincibility frames that stack infinitely and do not go away when Haiku dies. And so, with all of the invincibility frames I'm getting, I am going to be able to walk directly through a hot room without taking damage, which is actually a faster way to get to, even with all this time spent dying, it is a faster way to get to our next boss than going the intended way, given some other things that we need to pick up for this run. Which I think is beautiful and perfect, and is a major reason to run this game. Shoutouts to low percent in this game, where we use that iframe stacking to actually skip picking up a couple of items, and it features a moment where we take 13 intentional deaths in a row, one of my favorite speedrun categories. But yeah, this is Incinerator Burner. You'll notice that I am currently on fire, but I am not, in fact, taking any damage. Here, I'm gonna take a... Oh, that's bad. I'm gonna miss that. Okay, one sec. Gonna focus for a sec. Okay, great. So that power cell that I just picked up, which I'll talk about in a sec, you really want to have a movement ability for that, but by Coyote jumping off of the edge of the sinking platform, and then spamming jump as fast as you possibly can, you can actually just make that with Haiku's base walking speed, which is nice because we want the power cell. What is a power cell, you ask? If you're familiar with Hollow Knight, they're very similar to that game's grubs. But basically, they are collectibles in the overworld that we're gonna be able to trade in for a lot of scrap a little later on. This is a boss that no one likes. Say hello to Car Battery. One of the neat things about any percent is that the iframe abuse that I described, you can actually use to skip the boss trigger that makes Car Battery active. Because this is an all bosses run, skipping bosses is a little bit of a no-no. But Car Battery is not my favorite boss in the world because he has projectiles that effectively last forever, as well as that attack with the laser pillars where he's just invincible while doing it. So what we mostly want to see is that attack there where he lays on the ground and electrifies the floor, which is really nice. That was a relatively okay Car Battery. Not my favorite Car Battery ever, but then again, no Car Battery is my favorite Car Battery ever. So here I'm going to be grabbing these scrap nodes, and it's for a couple of reasons. One, this is a very dangerous section of the run. Not quite the most dangerous section of the run, but I need to do 2 more bosses and 1 more entire area, more or less, without having a bench, a safety save, a place to heal. And that is because in Haiku, quitouts do not save your progress. So we death warp places. Which means that there are going to be many times in this run where my save is actively somewhere far away from me because I want to be death warping back to it. But also, I hard required to have at least 1 scrap for this section because there is a clock that needs to be repaired in order to make the elevators work in this area. And without repairing that clock, it's basically a hard gate on your progress. I'm just going to take the heal here, I think. And so without that 1 scrap, we would not be able to accomplish much else in this game. But as soon as I do that, I'm going to go down and accidentally on purpose fall down this gap for our next boss, the Mischievous Mechanic. Mischievous is another boss that has a decent amount of RNG because he also has an invulnerable attack, but fortunately it is much less likely that we get that for Mischievous. Also very helpfully drops a power core, I'm going to need 4 power cores by the end of this run. And by the end, I actually mean very close to the middle. And then another coyote jump there to get back to where we were going. You also see me pick up 2 capsule fragments now. Those are not actually required for the run, but they are very, very convenient safeties to take. I'm going to take a slow cycle here. It's okay, whenever you're ready. They're very convenient safeties to take because 2 of them are right at our feet, and 1 of them is a very small detour. And having 5 health rather than 4 for the true final boss of the game is a very nice thing to have. So that trick there that I took a second to accomplish was a trick called a buffered landing jump, or BLJ for short, because I worship chaos and confusion. But basically, the coyote frames in this game are so generous that you can even get them from a jump. So by pressing jump twice quickly in succession near the ground, you actually can get a little bit of extra height on your base jump. It's not going to be relevant once we have the double jump ability, but it is hugely relevant in the early game here. So with this, we are into factory facility, where we've got conveyor belts and robot arms and all sorts of fun things besides. I'm gonna go ahead and play it safe here, just because I don't want to have to redo a whole ton of progress right now. When you damage tank on an enemy, your slide, your basic dash, sort of goes twice as fast, or twice as far rather. And so there are a number of damage tank strategies that, especially in any percent, which is like a 20-minute category, there are a number of damage tanks. You're like constantly running around on 1 HP, far away from a save. We have a little bit more time to spend together, and a little bit more need for that health. So instead, we're just gonna make our way to the next boss while I almost get sniped by that Sawblade bird. The next boss is called Buzzsaw, because it's a giant buzzsaw. I think you've picked up on sort of a pattern here. Most of the bosses just say what they are. Buzzsaw is the main reason that we run this game on an earlier patch. So the speed patch of this game is patch 1.0.265. And the main reason for that is because Buzzsaw is a joke on this patch. Less health, slower moving, and its AI responds very poorly to you being above it. Has no real attacks to deal with this, so we can just pogo him to death. And that's Buzzsaw. And Buzzsaw is going to give us the holy grail of movement for this game, which is the Morph Ball ability. It's technically called Body Modifier, but you know what it is, I know what it is, Mr. Morris knows what it is. And right away I'm actually going to do a tech with it where I stand up inside a Morph Ball tunnel, which will let me Death Warp a little bit faster. And now it is time for the hardest trick in Haiku the Robot speedrunning, bar none. It is so difficult, in fact, that I am only going to go for it a handful of times, and then I may be skipping it. Basically, there is a grapple hook ability in this game, as there is in so many Metroidvanias, that we do not technically have the equipment to acquire yet. However, the quote-unquote normal place to acquire it is about 10 to 15 minutes later in this run. So it would give us a massive speed boost if only there was a way to get grapple early. Unfortunately, there is. It's just a bit of a pain. Alright, so that's the first part. We have a very precise pogo on that enemy while it's in its animation. I'm gonna focus here. Okay, so basically, what we want to do, I can safely heal back to full, and we'll overheat here, but that's fine. Basically what I'm trying to do here, while we wait for Haiku to cool down just a little bit, is we want to morph, slide, morph, jump, all within the coyote frames. Oh, I grabbed the wall there. Let's go. There it is. I'm so glad I got to show that off. Okay, no sweat. The reason that's such a pain, in addition to it just being a nasty trick, is that if you die there, the run bricks, because you drop a little bit less than half of your scrap when you die, and I really need all of the scrap I can get, because we hard require 400, which of course I did not get from this enemy, because scrap counts are variable in this game. Alright, give me something here. Great, that'll do. Alright, moving on from early grapple. I promise it'll make back up a fair bit of time. Now we need to get our sealants, and I'm going to try to do an early control here, which I got. You love to see it. So by bouncing off of the... side of the dais there, you can get early control before you get locked into the cutscene that's supposed to give you the sealant, which is super convenient because it lets us buy both sealants, and then as soon as the cutscene for the first one ends, we can leave, which is great. And now we're going to fight the silliest boss in the game. This is Bulb Hive. It's a stationary boss that always takes 15 hits to kill, unaffected by crits, and yet the game considers it a boss. And the game considers it a boss specifically because bosses in this game are the only thing that are actually worth 1% completion. Everything else is just sort of in a sludge where everything, every map tile, every ability pickup, everything else is equally weighted, worth a little bit less. All right, we're gonna be grabbing some safety scrap here, but now we go back through Incinerator Burner. And on our way here, we're going to pick up this chip that we could not before, which is the gyro accelerator, which is going to further increase our morph ball speed. And then I'm going to heal down on the elevator. So if you strike the elevator, the reason, I mean, Bulb Hive is a boss, so we had to fight it anyway, but even any percent gets Bulb Hive, gets Bulblet, and that's because this elevator actually isn't spawned in unless you have the Bulblet, which is a bit of a shame, but actually not really, because I don't like doing speedrunning in the dark, personally. All right, so now with that, what was important there is that I equipped Gyro Accelerator at that save station without actually saving, because I want to keep my save point by car battery for effectively ever. And there, the enemies were placed a little bit badly, but there I could show off that corner boosting is a thing in this game. If you roll up a corner in morph mode, you get a decent amount of height, which is kind of nice. And with that, we've got our next major ability. This is Blink. Blink is a short-range teleport. It is a natural consequence of the game having a short-range teleport in it that the collision, and in particular the inbounds versus out-of-bounds collision in this game, is very robust. So there's actually only 2 places that we can really abuse Blink for speedrunning skips, and it will come as no surprise to know that this run abuses both of those 2 spots. But first we have to hit probably the scariest point in the game. The next boss I have to fight is a very annoying, very RNG cycle-based boss called Big Drill, and it is about as far away from my save point as I can possibly get. So the one place, more than anything, I am hoping to not take a death in this run. I said I'm hoping to not take a death in this run, is right here, effectively. So we actually got a decent amount of safety scrap. which I am a fan of. I'm also going to pick up the final chip of the run. It's actually pretty great. Come on. It's actually pretty great that the game starts you with one red chip slot, one green chip slot, and one blue chip slot. And we pick up one chip of each color, which I just think is as beautiful synchronicity. Oh, come on. Now we're getting all sorts of funky corner boosting. All right, I'm gonna heal while you go that way. Okay, let's not get stuck in the corners there. Morph Ball and corners interact in a super funny way, just sort of generally. Fortunately, that last cycle, like, it's very hard to miss. All right, I would love to stop getting hit by the enemies that I'm making to kill, actually. All right, we're gonna smack this drill, and then we're going to enter the big drill fight. So the ideal case scenario for the big drill fight is a 2-cycle. Basically, we need to break each of its segments. And in between the first and second cycle, there's going to be an invulnerable phase where it spits up garbage at us from below. Big Drill also moves faster and spits more garbage the more of its segments you've broken. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not gonna go for it. Nope, he's back already. Yeah. Alright. I will take a 3-cycle. Big Drill is my arch nemesis for sure. And there is that last capsule fragment. So with these 3 capsule fragments, I'm capable of getting 1 extra health, which I'm going to, for marathon safety's sake, do at the earliest available opportunity. If you are getting the safety, it is still recommended to do it a little bit later in the run. But we're actually still not done with not taking a save. And so just a safety for the final boss before I can at long last deathport back to car battery save. I'm going to play it maximally safe. But with that, we were able to blink through that wall in Forgotten Ruins and access the sort of hub of Forgotten Ruins. And so here I'm going to unlock this train station. We need this train station much later anyway because the final boss is located right around here. But because you upgrade your health on the train, it's a perfect excuse to go visit Rondell the Wielder, and grab our 5th HP. So something else to note is that you'll notice that I took a rusty key in Sunken Wastes when I was on my way to Big Drill. That's for this boss here. I mean this inconspicuous door here. This is Rusty Door, the weakest boss in the game. It's the only 1-phase boss. And ideally we want this attack pattern as much as possible, where we just can sit right on top of Rusty Door and don't ever have to back off, and not that pattern because that one's rude. That should be the Rusty Door fight. Yeah, he doesn't have too much health there. So yeah, some of these big rooms are why we really want early grapple. And as you might notice from the sprinkler systems turning on here, so first of all, this is why we got water sealant. Heat sealant we wanted for the overheated rooms, water sealant we wanted for this pipe access to get into the water ducts, which is where our next boss is going to be. Okay, that's great RNG. Always love not getting hit by the garden shears there. This is another incidental benefit of the bulblet, and the reason we equipped amplifying transputer earlier is a skip right there. Also, just having more blink distance means going further, which is like good for speedruns, you know? So I'm gonna pick up a second liquid coolant. What's super cool about having 2 liquid coolants is that your heal now actually lowers your heat rather than raising it. So these are the scuba heads, colloquially referred to as the washer knights. I'm sure you'll see why momentarily. Unlike their Hollow Knight namesake, however, because we don't have a ranged spell, it is more of a blessing that you take when they group up. And you can hit multiple of them at once. Nice, okay, and that's Washer Knights. And with Washer Knights, we're going to go down to this statue, which is absolutely not a reference to any video game, and pick up our double jump, the jump booster. And with that, I can finally death warp back to the car battery save from so long ago. And funnily enough, we have to come all the way back out here in order to do that death warp. But at long last. So I mentioned probably a while ago about how Blink, we could only really truly abuse it in 2 spots. Here's one of them right here. That transition is supposed to be one way, but the transition still exists, so we can just blink into the wall and pick up power bombs, a super major upgrade from this side. It's also used in any percent. It saves truly so much time. And then from here, we're gonna go right around to our first major story boss of the game. This is Electron, the 3rd creator. This is one of 2 bosses where the attack skipping sort of thing really matters. Unfortunately, in Electron's case, it's pure RNG. It is possible with sufficiently advanced critical hit RNG to skip 1 attack in Electron's 2nd phase. But you need something like 11 crits, so like I'm already confident I will not be able to get the attack skip. It's just like every, once out of every like 6 or 7 runs maybe that make it here, you just get a random 4 seconds of time save. What's not to love? But that's Electron. So at the end of this fight, I'm actually going to be death warping out a little bit early because creators try to lock you into a cutscene where they install themselves into your sword. But if we death warp out before, like while our text is up, but before that actually plays, then we can skip that, which is kind of nice. And we're going to move right on to the next creator. You'll notice that these bulbs are glowing red and suck. They are constantly homing in on me in just the most aggressive way. That's because we destroyed their leader, and in the absence of a bulb hive, they get angry, I guess. All right, and here I'm not actually taking the save point. We're just going right on up to bunker. This is our first late game area. And so in the last bunker, one of the major differences between all bosses and skills and any percent, the two major differences really are the coolants and double jump. Like everything else is sort of window dressing. But so in Bunker, I'm going to take the save point here, because we're going to need to refer back to it for a couple of bosses later in the run. And now we're going to come up on our second major blink skip. So you're not supposed to be able to blink through lever gates, which are these gray gates, but there's a little bit of wall right above our lever gate, so we can just do that. That was found basically the moment boards open. Oh, also, thank you so much, everyone who donated to dunk the robot. We have now dunked the robot. And so with that, with having satisfied the ability for Haiku to dunk on the haters, we're now going to get the other boss with an attack skip that is actually very relevant and very skill-based. Fingers crossed. This is Neutron. Neutron has a Giga Laser attack that deals something like, or that is one of the only double damaging attacks in the game, and is also, it takes approximately 4,008 years to actually execute, during which time he cannot be killed. So I'm going to try and keep up a very specific and very aggressive damage rotation here. So far, so good. So that we can hopefully kill him before we see the big laser. This looks good. I would like to believe. Nice. Okay. I don't even need to worry about healing here, because we're going to death warp out of this fight as opposed to continuing from it. So Neutron actually needs to install itself in our sword, and then we're going to just death warp and do some movement. So this is probably a great point if there are any messages or donations from our host.
Well, there aren't good donations, but I can go over some of the any interesting prizes that we have.
Let's do it.
We are unfortunately way good.
That's all good. I can pop back. So this is the ruined surface. It's raining, thunderstorming even, and so this is the other use case of, yeah, go for it.
Towards getting a random rather than honest choice.
Awesome, thank you so much. So with that little jaunt across the surface, we've now made it into Blazing Furnace, which is where our last story boss is going to be located. This boss is an interesting case, Proton. First of all, we've got these lava cycles that we're mostly just going to not deal with, which is great. This lava cycle is actually frustratingly kind of unbeatable. The hitboxes on the falling lava is actually deceptively huge. Like, for instance, they go underneath the platforms that are theoretically catching them. We just wait there. We have to. But this is Proton. Proton was also buffed on a patch later than the speed patch we use, which is super nice. But the big thing for Proton is that the Proton fight can be a little bit RNG, but far eclipsing the amount of critical hits that are RNG. It's mostly about what attacks Proton decides to go with in Phase 2. In Phase 1, he just spits all of this lava goop at you. But in Phase 2, we can choose from 3 attacks. There's one that's a little bit long, but is great for us. There's this one, which is probably the best one, if I had to guess. So this is the long but great one. Basically, it's going to take a dip in lava and then come right to the center and just spend his days spitting, which means we can constantly pile on damage in order to kill it very, very quickly. Once again, I'm going to Death Warp out of Proton. And unlike in any percent, I'm going to go back into Bunker here, because there's one more optional boss that I need to hang out with real quick. So we're going to go back to Surface. And we're actually going to head into the Kickstarter backer cemetery here for a second. And I have a very important question for all of you in the Twitch chat right now. Come on now. It's the distant future. But memes aside, we're going to take this as a sort of back entrance to reach our final, like, non-story boss of the run. Very precise stand there on the edge of that platform so that the saw blade doesn't hit us, but we don't have to wait for it to leave. And this is Big Brother, because it's a giant flying camera. Get it? Big Brother is another boss that just sort of spawns ads at us. Alright, we really wanted to kill it before the third ad spawn, but that's fine. So we just have two bosses remaining, the two major story bosses, the final boss and then the true final boss. So we're going to quickly navigate our way down. Okay, let me not die here would be great. We're so close. We're going to navigate down to this one final train station. And I'm actually going to save at this train station so that I spawn on the train after beating the final boss and, like, rolling the credits. So this run does see credits twice, so time is not coming up anytime soon. But I am going to quickly mash through credits after beating this next boss. And then go fight and kill the true final boss to actually end the run. But we're going to make our way back to the mainframe vault that I sort of never really encountered because of my routing, but this is it. I'm going to grapple across here to skip the cutscene of opening the mainframe vault, which takes a second, and we're going to move right into the Virus fight. Virus is a bit of a wall casually, but is actually very nice for speedruns, because unlike almost every boss in the game, Virus is actually vulnerable during its interphase screams. So ideally, I do a ton of damage to myself in phase 1. No, ideally we do a ton of damage to it in phase 1 here, where it actually fights back, and then we just get good enough crit RNG that it only gets one attack, which is this attack right here, for the entire rest of the fight. Alright, we did not get that good enough crit RNG. And of course it chose the fastest possible attack to blindside me with. Alright. That's Virus. It's not time. I repeat, not time. But with that, we've beaten the game. So you got a free any percent run with your all bosses and skills run. Once again, don't ask me what the lore of this game is. I couldn't possibly tell it to you. I do know, however, that a large part of it is about sort of like reclaiming the Earth from machines and trying to reintroduce natural life. These are great games, great devs, very environment-minded. Plant some trees. Now having mashed through that, we're going to load back into the save here. We're going to get this cutscene from an NPC called Verse, who we've, like, nominally seen a couple of times, but have never spoken to. And he's going to tell us to go to the true final boss, which, fortunately, I have a train station unlocked very, very near the true final boss. And I am sitting on the train, as luck would have it. So I'm going to train on over to Forgotten Ruins, and then I'm actually going to quit out immediately, because it is faster to quit out and load back in. Unless we don't even get it. Interesting. So I'm not going to do that a second time. We're just going to ride the train there. But in the general case, you want to quit out and load back in when riding the train, so that you can skip this train riding moment where the door closes on you and you can't actually get out. It's, like, cute, but it's not great for speedruns. All right. And with that, we're gonna go back past the rusty door. May he rust in peace. And then from here, we are going to go to the arena of the final boss, the Lost Archives, or the Last Archives. But here we're going to plug our sword into this little gate, and Verse is going to show up and tell us that he's been holding on to great power all along. And then he's going to install himself in our sword, a process which takes so long that I can already go and take this safety save and still get back in time to beat the gate actually unlocking, which I think is a very nice QOL for the final boss. But so we're gonna watch this cutscene, and then this is the true final boss fight. Surprise! It's all three creators at once. But so the thing about this game, or the thing about this fight. Ooh, that was faster than I wanted it to be. Okay. Gonna focus up here. So the bosses will like team up attack, as well as do any number of individual solo attacks, some of which are new. All right, am I gonna get the, no, great, so I'm gonna heal here. So when you kill one of the three, the other two get a brief heal. Like a small heal, not their full HP, but enough. Alright, this is a great attack from Proton, because in this arena, its ability to actually threaten you with the goop is much lower. I'm very surprised Proton is not dead yet. Oh, it's gonna be Electron. Okay, Proton as the Ender is actually pretty okay because its ultimate attack has its center screen and very vulnerable, which is, I like that. But of course he's gonna start with the triple dive, which is much less fun. Yeah, and they start chaining attacks very, very quickly in this last phase, regardless of which creator. So every creator has the three. All right, let's go. All bosses and skills. So time is coming up. It's going to be as soon as the screen fully fades to black after this boss explosion sequence here. So we're going to see the sword purified, which I think signifies that we did it. And then it will be time. Coming up in just a sec here. And time. Yeah, let's go with that. That was great. I'm so glad I got early grapple in this marathon run. That trick is so finicky. But yeah, just some quick shout-outs that I'd love to give before dipping for the evening. Shout-outs to the Lone Fungus community was just born basically yesterday. The Haiku community has been around for a little bit longer, but for Haiku in particular, the game is about to, literally next weekend is the 1-year anniversary of the game. And in addition to, there's some cool like fan art stuff that's been going around in the community, as well as there's rumored to be a major update patch to the game that's going to break speedrunning open again, all anew. The dev's been teasing some stuff in the Discord. So both these games are phenomenal Metroidvanias, phenomenal speed communities. Please hop in to either the Lone Fungus or Haiku Discord. You can find them on SRC. I am an SRC moderator for both games, and I would love nothing more than to help get you set up and playing both of these phenomenal little games. But yeah, and you can find me at twitch.tv/QuackSilverPlays and basically no other social media, which I think is kind of convenient and very cool for 2023. But lastly, I just want to say thank you so much to Green Gaming Fest for having me, for letting me hop on the host mic, and also letting me do some wild and wacky runs for y'all. This is always a fave of mine, and I'm so grateful that I got to share it with you. Yeah, thanks.
And if you would like to stick around, there are still more runs coming up after this. We have Mr. Driller A being played by Shimako for the Dorado Ruins any percent category. And then Emerald Dali. Emerald Dali playing the Ghost of Tsushima at dual rush category, and Shoto playing Kaosho playing Cal the Kangaroo round 2. And there are plenty of things to donate for. There are a couple of bid wars going on, and of course, if we get $400 more, we can say we've hit our donation target of $1,000. So stick around. There's plenty more coming up.